Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited to be continuing this conversation we're having about narcissism. So this week's video is about whether you see a pattern of you attracting the same sort of partner. So is that in the psychology terms or in my research that I found, this is called the dance between the codependent and the narcissist. So it's sort of a dynamic, a cycle, a dance that happens repeatedly because the codependent and the narcissist make the perfect whole, because one is an immense giver. So the codependent is there to always give, to always be empathic, to be supportive, to listen. And the narcissist, as we've established, always wants to be the center of attention, wants to take. They're the takers and the codependent is the giver. And together they balance each other out. That's why I find that when you guys message me about relationship questions and so on, is mainly because you seem to see that you seem to attract the same sort of partner. So if it's, let's say, if your previous partner was abusive and you then ended up getting with someone else and he ends up being the same sort of patterns, that's because it's probably what you're attracting or what you find attractive. We've already discussed what codependency is and what narcissism is. That's why if you guys know the traits of each, then it's very easy to see why. For example, if a couple go on a date and let's say the guy is a narcissist and the woman is a codependent, or vice versa, either way, and they're having a conversation, and for about 6 hours the person who's the narcissist sits and talks about themselves and all their issues and all their problems and how the world is to blame for them getting fired from their previous job is because they were too good, too smart, their boss felt threatened, and it's just them talking about themselves and how amazing they are and how unfairly they've been dealt. And the empath or the codependent will sit there, and because where they feel validated by being needed, by listening and by reassuring the narcissist that it's okay, oh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that, oh no, the narcissist is feeding off that. They have someone that listens to them, so they go back and tell their friends, I met this girl, she's incredible, she listened to me the whole night, we had the deepest conversation, we spoke for about 6 hours, where in reality it was him talking about himself continuously and not taking much of an interest in you. But as an empath or as a codependent, you sat and you listened and you reassured, because that's your nature. You're a caregiver. You're someone who wants to make everybody feel happy. And by you being very supportive or understanding their problems, you are then validated. You feel needed as well. You're doing something great for someone. You're taking care of them. And this is where that it's not necessarily a great connection, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they had a great conversation with each other. It just means that the narcissist's ego is being fed and the codependent's also feeling wanted and needed, therefore they're validated. And this is why you seem to attract the same sort of people, because if you have those traits and a narcissist finds that attractive, then you're offering what they want, and vice versa. As a codependent, you're attracted to someone who's a leader, who takes control, who's very charming, who's very outspoken, confident, because you need that to kind of, you could depend on that. So when you look at it at first glance, it kind of seems like the perfect relationship because you balance each other out. But the issue lies with what the narcissist does once they get the codependent. Because the relationships between codependents and narcissists is very, very intense at first. Narcissist as a personality is very, very charming. They know what to say. They make you feel like you're the only person in the room. They know how to play the game. They will do anything because they're good at manipulating. So they will manipulate the situation to their benefit. And it's very intense. It's very intoxicating. You're on cloud 9. You think you have found the love of your life. The chemistry is off the wall because you find their traits so attractive, and they're in their element like a peacock showing off because they have someone to show off to. The abuser, being the narcissist, needs a victim. They need someone to abuse, so they'll do anything they can in their power to get you to be that victim. So that's why what happens in these kind of relationships, or you find yourself in the same sort of cycle, is because you fall for the charm at the beginning, but once the dust settles and the narcissist feels comfortable enough that they have you, and you're not going anywhere, because as a codependent, you're loyal, you're faithful, you love hard, you give it your all. So they know that, and therefore they know that they've got you and you're not leaving. That's when the true colors come out, and that's when they start showing, and the relationship becomes very toxic. So then this cycle develops. And the reason you keep staying and you can't get yourself out of that is because as an empath, as a codependent, people tend to see the best. And they always want to be very, very supportive. And once they commit and they're very loyal, it goes against what they believe. They hold on to that beginning charming stage. Let's say there's a narcissistic girlfriend and she knows that the codependent male wants to commit to her. They're now a girlfriend-boyfriend. So when that happens, then the narcissist, you're not doing anything right. You're constantly being put down. You are being told that you're wrong. You're being told that you're not good enough. You're criticized. You're gaslighted. And you don't know why there is such a change. So if you're the codependent, you actually don't understand why from being so amazing and charming, it's now gone to it being so emotionally abusive. But what happens is that every so often when the narcissist feels like they're losing you and they see that they're threatened and you may pull back too much, they show you what they're capable of, or they go back to the person they used to be at the start of the relationship. So they show you a little bit of the fun side, a little bit of the caring, attentive side, to just remind you that no, I can do this. And that what that does to the codependent is that the codependent then feels constantly the need. It's like it becomes a drug. You're now addicted to that hit of them approving you and being nice to you. So you're continuously doing things just to please the narcissist in the relationship so that they could show you their nice side as a reward. And therefore, you're constantly trying to make them feel wanted, needed, loved, and supported. And you justify because you know what they've been through and their traumas. You've listened to it in the first few dates and meetings when he was being nice or she was being nice. And you've heard it, so you try and be compassionate towards that trauma, towards the reasons why they're acting the way they're acting. You try and rationalize and justify their behavior or their abuse towards you because you're holding on to that snippet of the good that they show you every so often, just so they could have and maintain control over you. So the relationship between these two kind of people is very, very volatile. It's very up and down. You have your peak moments where everything's great. And then the codependent is searching for approval again, working very hard to win that approval. And then the narcissist will show a brief moment of approval, and then it's back to that same cycle. And it's very, very up and down, and it's very, very volatile. So what happens is that in the dynamic of these relationships, when you're doing this dysfunctional dance, every person in the relationship they're just there to protect themselves emotionally and mentally. They're too busy trying to keep their space protected because the other person is so toxic for them. And the narcissist just feels insecure. The codependent's obviously getting abused. That none of the core issues of a relationship actually gets resolved or discussed or addressed. The relationship doesn't necessarily grow in the right direction because you're always so stressed and so busy trying to keep yourself sane and protected that you actually lose the whole purpose of being with someone or dating someone. And that's not to have this toxic love, it's to make your life better, is to move and grow and go forward in life. And whether you choose to get married or have kids or just grow and build together, that's the purpose of a relationship, not this cat and mouse game. So the cycle continues and it just goes on and on. And what happens is, depending on your situation, most times when the situation is very severe, would you honestly think that your narcissistic partner would wake up one day and suddenly develop empathy and be a caring, nice person? Absolutely not. And that's not because they don't want to, that's because they cannot. It's not in them. not capable of doing that. So you know what you're in for. And that's why it just depends on the severity of your situation. Sometimes you may just need to end the cycle, but other times there are certain boundaries that you can inject into the relationship so that it kind of puts a break to the cycle. It kind of breaks the cycle a little bit. And those boundaries may seem simple, but if you don't find the core of the issue or kind of peel back the layers and see where this is coming from, because obviously we're not born codependents. And when I mean codependent, it doesn't mean that you're walking around being an absolute doormat, people walk all over you, you're a pushover. No, there are women who are high efficient codependents. So they're very successful, they're high ranking, they're confident, but they're just working themselves to death. They're always trying to keep their family and friends happy. And that's kind of a high functioning codependent. So it doesn't mean that you have to be a complete pushover for you to be in this situation or in this position, or for you to attract a narcissistic partner. This again can apply to men and women, both sides. But the reason I'm in particularly mentioning the ladies is because those are the people that I get the most messages from. So you guys are looking for answers, that's why I'm basing it on the woman. But by no means this is any different if you're a male and your partner, the female, is a narcissist and you're the codependent. So the steps to take to try and break the cycle is not very difficult, but it is at the same time where you don't have to move mountains to do anything in particular, but you have to really self-reflect and look deep. And that's much harder if you don't want to face anything, because as a codependent, by you always tending to other people's needs and always making sure that they're emotionally stable and are happy and content, you then divert yourself and avoid looking within yourself. And that's why these issues stem from, because we're not born codependents. Due to socialization, childhood upbringing, we've adapted to become codependent. So as people, and same with narcissists, we're not born narcissists. We've been socialized and nurtured in a certain way that has evoked these narcissistic tendencies. So therefore, everything is adaptive. And if you can teach yourself, or you can see the roots of where this codependency has come from. So the first step would be to really get to know yourself. So really analyze where this insecurity is coming from. Why do you feel the need to make everybody so happy? And really just decipher and break down the things that you're avoiding to look at. So understand and know yourself. I know it sounds silly, but if you don't know what your problem is, because like I always say in my videos, the only person you've got control over is yourself. So if you can't change the other person, which you cannot, then the only person you can change is yourself. And in order to change yourself, you need to see what needs changing and what needs work and improvement. The next step would be to observe yourself, but without any judgment, to just be a bystander and watch how you handle and behave in situations. And this is not just in your romantic relationships, but just your relationships with your friends and family. When you're asked to go somewhere or eat something, what would you feel like doing? Do you always like, oh, I don't know, whatever you want. Oh, you pick, I'm cool with whatever you choose. I don't mind, I'm easy, your decision. Then that's an indicator, that should, as an observer, you should see that you are, when the floor is yours, you are not taking it. You are not stepping in. When the opportunity is given to you, you are not speaking up. And with this observation, like I said, this is not just in your romantic relationships, but just all round. If you start inserting these boundaries with friends in a very amicable way, where if someone asks you what do you feel like eating, you tell them what do you feel like eating. Or if you want to go somewhere or you don't want to go somewhere, you tell them, you know what, not tonight, not for me. This isn't my scene, so I'll give this one a miss. It's okay to do that. And that's you practicing putting boundaries down. This also doesn't let you showcase your authentic self, because you're always going along with what other people want and other people's needs. So you don't really have a say. And this shows a systemic way of being. It's across bored with your friends, with your family, in your relationship, and you're constantly neglecting your wants, your needs, your desires, and you are not prioritizing yourself at all. And that's part of the problem, because if you don't really know what you want and you don't know yourself, you haven't taken that time to get to know yourself, how could you then set boundaries if you don't know where those boundaries are? Codependents find it extremely hard to set boundaries or to say no, because they feel like the other person's now no longer happy or is upset with them, so they take it within themselves. So in order to learn how to set these boundaries, the next thing I'd recommend is to say no with positivity. So to always put it in context, that makes it easier. Let's say if someone keeps inviting you to events and you can't keep going, or you have something on, then it's always maybe easier for you to say something like, thank you so much for always thinking of me or always including me in your plans, but I'm afraid this week I'm a little bit busy, but maybe we can catch up soon. That way you're saying no, you're still sticking to your boundary, but it doesn't mean that you have to be mean or you have to be quite rude, or if it doesn't come to you naturally to say no, then if you do it in this way, you're explaining why and they understand the context. So maybe that would be a good way to also insert boundaries into the relationship. So do it with positivity and try and make them understand why you're changing things, or you're saying no to certain things, or you're not happy with certain things. Start off with positivity and it'll just make it easier for you to speak it out. But what happens is, if your relationship isn't strong enough, or if you feel, it's not necessarily if the relationship isn't strong enough, that's not the right thing to say, but some relationships or some extreme narcissists cannot withstand boundaries and they cannot accept it at all. Because what happens is, if you start putting boundaries in place, you're changing the steps to the dance and they don't know what's coming to them. They're no longer in control. So if they're a real severe narcissist and really feel threatened by their position in the relationship, you sometimes setting those boundaries and trying to end that cycle may mean that is ending that relationship. But you need to think of yourself as number one and prioritize yourself and set those boundaries for your sanity. Because as a codependent, it's very hard for you to do that. But understanding this dance and this dynamic will then hopefully, or should hopefully, make you aware, because awareness is the first step. So what I'm asking of you, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, is to be brave. That may change dynamic, but that's okay. Because as a codependent, you need to learn to set these boundaries with or without that relationship. You need to learn to prioritize yourself and not give in to other people so much, regardless of the relationship you have with your partner. So you need to start off at your own doorstep. If you want to live to your full potential, it will never happen if you don't know how to set healthy boundaries. And that's why you guys should watch my video on setting boundaries, because it will really put things into perspective about what I mean, where to cross the line. By setting boundaries, you're not offending or hurting anyone. And if people around you that care for you do get offended by your boundaries, then they don't respect your wishes and wants and needs. So that respect should be from both sides. And it shouldn't just be you constantly respecting their wants and needs, but them not reciprocating that to you. So if you're setting boundaries and you're offending people, they shouldn't be there in the first place. So for you to break the cycle of meeting the same sort of narcissistic partners that at the start sort of love bomb you and shower you with love and affection, and then the minute they have you, their abusive, manipulative side comes out, then you need to look within yourself as to why you find that attractive, as to why they tend to be drawn to you, and where you need to heal yourself so that you could also meet a healthy person. Because you shouldn't be a half of a whole with a narcissist. You should be a whole by yourself, and that someone else adds bonuses to your life and improves your life. You're not there to take care of someone else and mother them and parent them. You are partners, and therefore you are on the same level. That's how it should be. The respect, the love, the affection, everything should be balanced out and should be equal, not one taking care of the other and one's a total giver and one's a total taker. I really hope that you find this video helpful. I know there's a lot of food for thought here, but many of you did message me, and I do see a pattern with quite a few of you that I've discussed this before, where you guys do tend to fall for the same traps. But if you just take a moment back, self-respect, get to know yourself, set your healthy boundaries, hopefully that will break the cycle of you meeting the same type of person all the time. I'll see you again here soon on another narcissistic topic, and we'll continue this conversation next week. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah.